Ah, yes, Bellabro Ironhammer. Honestly, pretty underrated lord choice for the Dwarfs. Someone recently asked me why you don't see Thorgrim or basically any lord choice besides Thorek Ironbrow. Reason being that Dwarf lords, since they're all infantry speed, the ability to cast abilities at a range is something that's exceptionally useful, right? Because they can't move around much to be in the right place at the right time. Somebody like Belegar, who is admittedly a exceptional combatant for his cost. He's got great stats baseline for pretty cheap. He's also got a number of abilities here. Right now he's rocking Hammer of Angrand, which gives him a little bit of a passive buff while his leadership is high. And Revenge Incarnate, also an activatable ability, plus 40 melee attack, 60% base weapon damage. With Revenge Incarnate, that will put him well over 110 melee attack. It's just ridiculous. The rest of the build here from Gojira, who is playing the Dwarfs. He's got a Runesmith, Master Engineer, some Thunderers, Slayers, bunch of Miners with Blasting Charges, Dwarf Warriors up front, Longbeards protecting the flanks, Brimstone Guns currently picking away at Tank's Harpies. Tank here playing the Beastmen. It's got a British Aim Lower Wild, some Tuskor Chariots out the flanks, Morgurs, Shadowgave, Ungor Herd, Centaurs Throwing Axes, a Cygor, and a Feral Manticore. Some Bestigor Herds, Blackhorns Ravagers. It's a build, as they say. Another Manticore over on the far side. Looking pretty good. Gojira is going to take an active defensive stance here. Come down from the hill a little bit, which honestly he should, given that he's getting picked away at by the Cygor. Tank can take his time here and just be very patient. He doesn't really have any need to aggressively attack. He can definitely play off the Cygor here, but Smoke Bomb excellently placed from Master Engineer, going to allow the Thunderers to turn and fire. One volley is enough to send a Feral Manticore screaming into some Slayers. Slayers are going to take a little bit of friendly fire and also some damage from the Manticore, but they will be able to finish off the Foul Beast. So that's a nice pick initially. The Thunderers there just took a bunch of damage from something. I don't know what. I must have missed it. But some summoned Chaos Spawn going to come in here, start to muck up those Miners with Blasting Charges, also try and get back and finish off those Thunderers. I think Morgur's trying to come into range, just do enough HP damage to actually turn this unit of Thunderers into an additional unit of Spawn, just to, you know, insta-gib them. But it does look like they're probably going to get away here. Meanwhile, the Chariots come in, they get a nice charge on those Longbeards, Dwarf Warriors, and Blasting Charges moving into a position to try and defend. Blasting Charges will do some damage to the Tuskor Chariots. 80 armor on them is not too high, but the Spawn Summon there gets quickly torn apart by the Slayers. Did a lot of damage to him, but still. We're also getting a little bit isolated here. Rune of Slowness being popped on some of those Tuskor Chariots, just trying to drag them down, but the Harpies are staying on top of the gyros, not allowing them to sit and shoot. Tank, in my opinion, making a little bit of a mistake here by committing these forces while also not committing this other infantry side here at the same time. It allows Gojira to just bring the other flank of his infantry force to bear here and try and push back the Beastmen, which he's mostly able to do. That being said, Feral Manticore still causing problems in the gyro ranks. The Thunderers did eventually get routed off there, it looks like. Yeah, they do come back, but not in a position to try and support against these flying units, at least for the time being. Belegar does get in. Revenge Incarnate, he's up to 700 weapon strength, 110 melee attack. Given Morgur's lack of armor, that 700 weapon strength is mostly going to be brought to bear against him, and he's just going to have a really bad time in this engagement. It's actually pretty hard to snipe Morgur, generally, for most factions, but Belegar definitely trying to get it done here. That being said, all this time the Cygor's just been pounding away at the Dwarfs' infantry line. Got 46 kills so far, not too much, but want to be probably rapidly rising there. Feral Manticore also gets enraged once again. Gyros are still the subject of its attacks, but Thunderers and the Brimstone Guns should be able to finish it off. This Brimstone Gun unit did lose a gyro model, but the others have not yet so far. We'll keep that in view and see. Bestigors and the infantry are starting to move in at this point, and because there's not a lot of shooting from the Dwarfs here, you know, it can be tough to protect infantry skirmishers against Beastmen, so there's just the Thunderers, and then obviously the Brimstones in the air, but the Feral Manticore actually doesn't get routed, and continuing to pick away at those Brimstone Guns, perhaps a catastrophic mistake. We'll see. The other Spawn Summon does get pulled up, though. I didn't see what unit exactly got finished off there, but it looks like a Traderkin going to be used here. Do some pretty good damage to that blob. Eventually, the Manticore does get enraged down into the Thunderers on the ground, Not before doing some serious damage, though. But anyway, as I was saying, because there's not a lot of counter shooting, the throwing axes here are able to just sit and pick away at whatever targets they choose. Right now, going after the Longbeards, the highest value infantry left on the field for them to try and fire at, and the Dwarfs are starting to run out of steam a little bit here. This second wave assault of the Beastmen is definitely coming on strong. Cygor still also completely healthy out in the distance, just hucking rocks. And this Vestigor being mostly unopposed at this late game. I mean, I said maybe it was arguably a mistake to hold them back for that time. I mean, with the disruption of the chariots out on the opposite flank, they probably could have come in and swept the Dwarfs already. Hard to say. But certainly Belegar holding out very admirably here in the center, along with his Longbeards. The Slayers being gone mostly at this point is a pretty big problem. They're not able to finish off the chariots, but again, Vestigor taking some nasty friendly fire. Cygor, honestly, probably better off just running into combat at this point, but we'll see. Maybe could throw over at these Dwarf Warriors over on the far side without risking it too much on the Vestigor there. Traderkin going to be used, not actually hitting any of the characters, but does hit these Slayers and other units that are pretty tattered. You can see the HP damage is significant. I mean, it's obviously being mitigated by the Dwarf's magic resistance a little bit, but it's not enough to dissuade you from using the spell completely. Nice flash bomb there, though. Does hit the Bracesham and Lower Wild. The Engineer this whole time's been picking away at him or other, decent targets. Definitely want to try and finish off that leadership if they can. The Vestigor did end up taking quite a bit of damage as well. Balance of power almost back towards even. The blasting charges could come in and dissuade these guys from finishing. Maybe the gyros could drop their bombs if they haven't already. On the Vestigor, it looks like they do drop some on the Ungor herds, which is possibly a mistake. You'd probably want to go after the Vestigor specifically, as they are by far the most threatening thing left on the field. But Morgar somehow survived that snipe attempt. Man, that is pretty impressive. I thought for sure he was dead. Belegar, it looks like, was unfortunately unable to finish the job. But let's see, balance power is back towards even as the Vestigor starts to run out of steam a little bit there. Yeah, blasting charges. The Brimstone guns should also probably be using their main guns to try and shoot in. They are starting to run out of ammunition, though, so these Brimstone guns are going to charge down onto the throwing axes, try and get at them. We'll see, Belegar's got a pretty good chance as long as he's going to have to fight 2v1, but this Cygor just looming out in the distance is an ever-present threat. We'll see. Belegar does not have enough HP to really go toe-to-toe with the Cygor if the Cygor is getting good, good attack lands, if the attack animations are landing successfully. But the Vestigor does end up actually finishing off the Master Engineer, perhaps. Huge mistake. He did have some ammo refills to give to the Brimstone guns, I think, left, which would have definitely been very helpful in this late game. There's no response for the Beastmen to pick away at this point at the Brimstones in the air, so had they been able to get some more ammo refills, would have been able to contribute, but at this point, they're going to be relegated to just rear charging this blob as Belegar tries to hold out with his Runesmith. Belegar certainly a very potent combatant, but facing off against an entire Beastman horde, with only the Runesmith to support him is going to be rough. The Brimstones really won't do much in melee here, but if Belegar can perhaps get at Morgar sensing this is just going to run for the hills. Definitely the right call to stay as far away from Belegar as possible. Brimstones actually get in here. They're able to somewhat trap him in, but Belegar instead going back after the Centaur's throwing axes. A handful of more bombs. Looks like maybe one more drop only is left there, but the Vestigor coming in now with their armor-piercing damage. It's not looking great for the Dwarven heroes. Keep it in cinematic cam up close as Belegar tries to cleave through the beasts. You see what's coming, though. A few more bombs dropped in. Centaur's charging, but the Cygor, he's slow since he is quite tired at this point, but Cygor's definitely a huge threat. And it looks like Rune of something going to be popped here. Rune of Negation on the Runesmith to try and help him continue to hold out here. Other than Cygor and Morgar, it's Beastman leadership is definitely suffering at this point. I mean, these Ungor herds, I'm surprised they're still fighting, to be honest. But let's see, with characters trying to go after Morgar. Here comes the Cygor. Centaurs all rush in to try and keep them separated, and the Cygor turns to fight. Gyros for the time being. Ungor herd's taking some damage there. Black One's Ravager still not routing. Here comes the Cygor. Come on, buddy, get a rear charge. There we go. A couple of units shatter for the Beastmen. No contact made on the Runesmith. Will the Cygor be able to do the job, or can BELEGAR and his bro hold out until the end times? We shall see. Morgr getting in here, and this is what I was talking about. Single entity combat, multiples usually wins. Unfortunately, the Runesmith does get terrified here, which is a big loss for BELEGAR. He's now going to probably have to fight 2v1, or 1v-many, I should say, as all the Centaurs rush in. They're still perfect vigor as well, so their charge bonus will go through some of the debuff armor of BELEGAR. Of course, units which are exhausted, a lot of people don't know, they actually get armor debuffs, so BELEGAR unfortunately gets isolated and terrified, and that will be game. Cygor taking almost no damage. And yeah, I think Gojira, he definitely had the tools he needed to. A couple of very minor mistakes in the late game there, I think, ended up costing him. Letting the engineer get killed without getting the ammo refills off, I think, on the gyros. If he had any left in his pocket, that could have been game, because them, finishing off like the Bestigor, it would have been a lot less armor-piercing damage, then also just doing some extra chunks to the Cygor. If you're able to, say, finish off, maybe you even actually go after the Centaurs, the throwing axes, just because you're able to shatter them. And then if it's Runesmith, BELEGAR versus just the Cygor, they're probably going to be able to take it down. It's tough to say. It would rely a lot on randomness, variability with some of those attack, defense, armor rolls, and so forth, but definitely a very fun one. Big thanks. I don't remember exactly why. I think I might have watched Gojira play this one live and then asked him to send it to me. I actually don't remember the context, but big thanks for sending that one anyway, Goji. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. I know I sure did. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.